Dear ladies and gentlemen, we kindly request for the front seats to be filled. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Day 2 of the first International Conference on Islamic Finance and Sustainability, ICIFS 2025. On behalf of the organizing committee, it is our pleasure to welcome you back for another day of engaging discussions, insightful presentations, and meaningful exchanges. We will begin today's program with a panel discussion on Advancing Islamic Finance Research, Aligning Theory with Practice for Sustainability, moderated by Dr. Ahmad Lutfi Abdul Razak. We are honored to welcome our esteemed speakers, Professor Dr. Muhammad Kabir Hassan, Professor of Finance in the Department of Economics and Finance in the University of New Orleans. Professor Dr. Mansour Ibrahim, Professor and Deputy President Academic and Dean of School of Graduate Studies in International Center for Education in Islamic Finance, INCEIF, Malaysia. Professor Dr. Hassan Abu Bakar, Professor of Communication and Management at the Othman Yob Abdullah Graduate of Business, University Utara, Malaysia. Associate Professor Dr. Hakima Yaqub, Associate Professor at Faculty of Islamic Economic and Finance, University Islam of Sultan Sharif Ali, UNISA.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. And a very good morning to everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you today to this panel discussion titled Advancing Islamic Finance Research, Aligning Theory with Practice for Sustainability. Islamic finance continues to evolve globally. There is a growing need to to bridge the gap between academic research and real-world practice, particularly in addressing challenges related to sustainability and social impact. Today's session brings together an esteemed group of experts who have contributed significantly to Islamic finance through academic research, advisory roles, and industry engagements. Their insights will help us explore how research can generate practical solutions to address pressing issues from sustainable product development, policy innovation, and financial inclusion. So we've structured the discussion this morning to 3 parts, each focusing on a critical aspect of the interaction between research and practice. Firstly, we'll look into academic research and publishing. How can Islamic finance researchers balance academic rigor with practical relevance? Then we'll look into bridging research, advisory, and consultancy roles? How can academic research be effectively translated into actionable solutions for financial institutions and policymakers? And then we'll look into academia's role in driving sustainability and collaborative innovation. How can academia lead interdisciplinary collaborations that drive sustainable financial innovations? Then after this, we will open the floor for questions from the audience to engage with our panelists directly. So before we begin, I'd like to introduce our distinguished guests, Professor Dr. Muhammad Kabir Hassan, University of New Orleans, United States, a leading figure in Islamic finance research and policy. Professor Mansur Ibrahim, ICIFS University in Malaysia, a renowned expert in macroeconomics and econometrics. Associate Professor Dr. Hakimah Yaakob, recognized for expertise in Sharia governance and Islamic legal frameworks. And Associate Professor Dr. Salamah Makmur, whose research on zakat, waqaf, and community development continues to shape sustainable finance policies. So with that, we'll go straight into the session. So firstly, let's begin by discussing how academic research in Islamic finance can achieve both academic excellence and practical impact. I'd like to start first with Prof. Kabir Hassan.
The big universities have their own club, and the researchers have their own club. If you don't belong to this club, it's very difficult to get to the top journal. And having said this, with the alarming tone, I want to say, if you're a good researcher, you do a good work, there's a value. You'll always find a place for publication. So in my life, 35 years I've been publishing. I never really tossed out any paper, even though when 1, 2, 3, 4, even the 5th journal, it got a place. So the younger researcher, you have to get frustrated. And I'm sure your own journey into publishing, you can start with something, you get rejected, try to refine it, and go to the next one. Having said this, so how do you do this? You have to follow a dual strategy that integrate theoretical framework with the vigorous empirical investigation. It's easier said to be done than to be done. The reason I'm saying this, data is very scarce, and you do not have the resources of many universities, because if you get a refer response, the refer is asking you to expand the database, but you're limited of the database that you have bought. Right now I'm going through a revision of General Corporate Finance. So we got a revision, we don't want to miss this opportunity. So we had to really collect another set of data 3 months. So good research takes time. If you want to become famous very quickly, that's the path we should not take. That will lead to a lot of hanky-panky things, unethical practices and so on. Now, what I say, the one promising approach we call is translational research, methodologies that bridge theory and practice by embedding case studies, field experimentation, or participatory research methods within solid conceptual framework. Having said this, you may not find a place in a very good journal, but it has some practical social value. So there is social value that we are talking about. There is a called DORA, San Francisco Declaration. Practical but that will take time. Usually, if you're sitting here, you have an idea of sustainability after listening to us. If you're lucky, from the beginning to the end, it takes about average 3 years, about Q1, Q2 level journals. So you really cannot publish a lot. Now, I can give an example. Green Sukuk can combine empirical analysis of environmental impact, which is applied in nature, with innovation and risk sharing, which are theoretical. Yesterday in my keynote address, I was talking about a model. You know, 2-factor CAPM can be converted into 4-factor or 4-fund separation theorem. That is the model. So you need to develop that technical and theoretical skill as well. Now, that brings down to the curriculum, the professors, the quality who teach you, and the university reputation that really makes you, skillful to do type of research. Coming from the United States, I have a North American bias, and Professor Mansoor also did his PhD from. In the US, we are not really like research driven, the research based. So out of 4 years, about 3/4 of your time, you become a student again. You take classes, you pass, fail, you take qualifying exam. So you're ready to go. And the thesis component, what we try to, a demonstration that you can do research. And we do not emphasize that you have to have your publication before you get your PhD. That also creates a wrong, perverse incentive. So all these things taken together, you have to be good in theory, good in empirics, data analytics, and you have to combine them in a meaningful way. In corporate finance, you have to look at your identification, A is causing B, endogeneity, whatever empirical tools you need to do, you really need to know this to be a good researcher and publish in good journals. So I'll stop here and give chance to the next scholar.
Thank you very much, Prof. Kabir Hassan. I'd now like to turn to Prof. Mansoor Ibrahim. In your experience, Prof, what methodologies or approaches should Islamic finance researchers adopt to create practical solutions for industry challenges, particularly in sustainability?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning to all of you. And thanks to UBD for having me here, and highly privileged to be among all of you. Very first conference, to be the first in the first conference. That's great initiative, and hopefully this conference will be sustained, I think, as has been mentioned yesterday, as an annual event. Thank you. Now, to address what has been asked related to, I think, kind of related to the bridging between theory and practices, academia and industry, where many have seen there may be kind of divide between them, that we at universities doing research are not able to link with the practices or having practical solutions. Now, based on my experience, I do not see that there exists a divide, but there exists certain things that need to be addressed for the bridging to take place. And that's things require both from the industry as well as from universities. As far as the researchers are concerned, I think Prof. Kabir has mentioned a few things. I'll try to add a little bit more regarding the responsibility of researchers, for example, so that the research that has been done will have practical implication. There are requirements. I think the key word that has been mentioned by Prof. Kabir, rigor, robustness, identifications, those are really important part, right? And doing research, we have to be serious, and that's why it's not something that can be assessed in 1 year. It required 3-4 years and so on. But unfortunately, on this side of the globe, we emphasize on yearly appraisals. That's quite defeating the purpose of doing research, because to have practical implications, a lot of effort need to be put in, especially in the context of identifications. Because when we look at some things, normally we have in economic what we term as observational equivalence, which means that certain things look the same, but they come from maybe different sources. there may be alternative explanations. Very simple example, for example, in finance, when we talk about random walks as well as chaotic behavior, they look exactly the same. You graph them, they will look exactly the same. But to identify where it's come from in terms of behavior of, let's say, stock prices and so on, whether it's chaotic behavior or random walk behavior, you have to do a lot of analysis. Right? Because random walk, unpredictable, chaotic, even it look chaotic, completely predictable. So those are identification issues. The same thing when you look at, for example, banking, the drop in lending, it can be from the demand side, it can be from the supply side. How to identify those. So it requires a lot of rigor and robustness in terms of the researchers himself in order to isolate what is the impact. When it comes to Islamic finance, for examples, and a lot of mistake that has been done because of not able to identify where's the source coming from. And at the end, we make conclusions very simply, simplistic in the sense that Islamic finance is the same as conventional finance without looking at properly identification. And that one really important. Right? And then in terms of bridging, I would say that the most important part is communications as well as absorptions from the industry side. My experience that I have, we did one research where the co-author, this is not published because it's consultancy work, the co-author coming from the industry, but he had PhD. Right? And what we did is quite simple, but require deep understanding of linear programming. And normally, when I learn in the States, for example, right, one professor sitting in the board of Federal Reserve Bank, he said when you talk to policymakers, don't tell them about geometric mean. They do not understand it. Right? So the same thing here, when you do linear programming, to tell the industry what linear programming, they will not understand it. So very important on how to communicate to them. So in this work that we have done, they would like to make assessments on how to rank the performance of branches of bank, because they have so many branches. And so far, they rank assessment based on deposits that they have over the years, as well as financing that they have over the years. And we come in and say that that assessment is not right. You cannot make assessment just based on deposit, because almost always when it comes to deposit financing, Kuala Lumpur will win. The big city will win. The brands in rural area will get lower bonus because they will not get as much as deposit. So we propose to them through my co-author, for example, to look at, I think, very simple DEA analysis and so on, look at potential and look at how close every branch to their potential. When you say potential, we have to look at all the inputs in the environments, competitive structure in those banks and so on. I did the analysis, but the communication part to the industry, that people from industry did. So there must be communications. But the best part is that the co-author understands well the literature on DAA. He read, I think he read 100 of articles, and he's so surprised that he said that I'm from industry, but there's so much to learn from the academic, which means that the industry also have to upgrade themselves to understand, right? The same thing when we talk about technology transfer, right? Developing countries need to have capacity to absorb the skills and the technology. If you don't have that capacity, of course you're not going to learn. And you cannot put the theory into practices. And the same thing from the industry. So what we learn from there, in order to link, I think, the research that we have done with all the jargons and practical implication to industry, you need to work together with those industries. And you need to upgrade the skill and the ability of industry to absorb the knowledge from the research work. As well as what I try to say in terms of this case, if we put in the context of jargons, the university may be up here, industry may be down here. University have to lower itself, but industry also have to go up, right? So in that way, they can meet at the middles. Because sometimes, so much often I heard from industry that something they do not understand is not practical. But then they have to put some effort to understand whatever the research coming up from universities. And the last thing that I would like to say, when it comes to research issues are very important, right? And I would touch a little bit on Islamic finance research, right? And I think I will try to stir a little bit in terms of what might be the future directions or what we have done so far. Maybe we digress a little bit, not looking at the real problems, especially when it comes to Islamic banking. When you look at the research for the past 40 years, 30 years, the early years, we look at concept, we look at the model, we look at the framework, and then once data available, we start evaluating performance, making comparisons. Early stage, a lot of comparison has been made on accounting ratios, metric, efficiency, and so on, and we do more and more, and now we focus more on the impacts. What are the impacts, and that's why sustainability coming in. What would be the impact of Islamic banking, Islamic finance on the various aspects of sustainability, right? And over the years, we also look at the crises that have happened, and most often originating from the financial markets. You have global financial crisis, you have Asian financial crisis, you have Russian crisis, you have all type of crises, except of course COVID-19 is more of the health crisis that translated into financial hardships and so on. And people look at Islamic banking as a way of basically maybe mitigate the impact of the crisis and so on. But then one important fact that we have seen so far, whatever we have done to address the problems arising from the crisis, for example, after, let's say, if we go back, for example, to the Great Depressions. After the Great Depression, they come up with the New Deals, where they reform the financial system. After global financial crisis, they came up with all kinds of regulatory frameworks, for example, Basel III. But then the crisis still takes place, right? So, which means that what we have done so far may not be sufficient to prevent the crisis or to mitigate the impact of the crisis. It may be the problem lies somewhere else, right? And Islamic banking is coming up. And if you look at Islamic banking, for example, more or less the business model in terms of financing is the same as conventional bank. The only thing is different is in terms of contracts, which are based on real sector connectivity and so on. But then the real problem, the issues, for example, that we need to look at, which I see is more practical or can have policy implications, to look at the structure of the banking system itself, the business model of banking system itself. And if you notice, for example, you look at the history of banking, after the New Deals, the banking sector was relatively stable for at least 50 years, right? Before the new thinking coming up, led by Milton Friedman, that promote the free markets, right? Because banking system have to be regulated. So if you look at the banking systems, for example, is a public-private partnerships where the public sector delegate the power to create money to the private sector, and in return, the private sector get the profits, but then have a risk embedded in there. So one research issue that need to be looked at, I would say perhaps to look back at that structure of the banking system, because the banking system so far have evolved so big and deviate away from the very basic principle of bank itself. They perform function more than the bank should perform. So we have to look back at that context, and there are many research issues that can be looked at. And I think if you do those, for example, they will have practical implications, and they will be linked directly to sustainability. I think I talked to Prof. Gabe that when it comes to sustainability, we always forget, and I think he mentioned in his keynote address, the social aspects. And I believe that social aspects are more important than environmental aspect when it comes to banking. Because social aspects, banking have direct impact. So those are type of things that need to be looked at so that our research can have more practical implications. So it will take a little bit longer time, but those are something that I would like to emphasize when it comes to research and its linkages into practices.
Thank you very much, Prof. Mansoor. I'm sure that there was a lot of points that resonated with a lot of us that are working in academia as well, and challenges bridging that gap as well. At this point, I'd like to draw your attention, audience, to the Slido QR code there. So please, I'm sure you have a lot of questions. If you can prepare that there, and I'll read it after. So now I'd like to turn to Associate Professor Dr. Ahmad Yaakob. How can academic research help address regulatory gaps in Sharia governance and the development of sustainable financial products?
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. Thank you for UBD for inviting me to this prestigious event. Basically, back to the question, how come the in our research, academic research can actually address the regulatory gaps as regard to the Islamic finance? Well, we have to understand when it comes to academic research, it's basically conducted in order to fill up certain gaps in terms of certain issues, right? Or any matters arising out of the regulatory concerns or even public concerns. And when this happens, it actually comes in different methods of research. It's either descriptive analysis or inquisitive analysis, and etc. And in terms of how you can actually address the regulatory gaps, first we have to understand that the world banking system basically that we are embracing and adopting is basically works within the paramedical approach. So the central bank is actually in the second tier within the 3 tiers, right? So the first tier comes from the international organization, for example, like Bank of International Settlement, that have issued the Basel III regulations. And they also issued the corporate governance for the banking system. Apart from that, we also have the International Association of Insurance Supervisors. You like it, you don't like it, even Takaful also follows and complies with these IAS core principles. And even for the banking core principle, BCP was also issued by BIS, Bank of International Settlement. And in the securities market, you are regulated and issued by the standards. They call it ISCO, the National Organization of Securities Commission. So with all these regulated industries regimented within the paramedical approach, not only BIS, we have even IMF, the National Monetary Fund, that the central bank will have to provide reports on the Financial Stability Assessment Program, FSAP, to IMF, I think, every 2 years. So other organizations in terms of, apart from these entities, we also have FATF, Financial Action Task Force on money laundering, right? So we can see how big is the market, right? So this FATF, they have issued 40+9 recommendations on money laundering. Failure to comply, if the central bank failed to comply and bring out to the practice within the industry in the tier 3, will eventually lead to the non-compliance, right? And your country might be put in the high risk, right? For the non-compliance on money laundering. And another part is, for example, Russia has been sanctioned from call it SWIFT code, right? So Russian can no longer transfer money, accepting money from outside, because they actually has been sanctioned by G20, and the SWIFT code has been switched off from their, Russian financial system. So when you have these, but fortunately Russia and China has their own, they have developed their own SWIFT code, interpayment system. They call it CHIPS as well as NIPS, right? NIP as well as CHIP. So they have the backup system. So you just imagine if this system has been switched off from our financial system, what will be the consequences, right? And the world banking system is really huge, especially in terms of the layer 1, that you need to comply. So who actually are required to comply within the first layer, the layer 2 as well as layer 3? And in fact, don't be surprised, it's not only organization from the international organization or establishment, for example, the IMF or even IAS or ISCO. We also have to comply with US law. You like it, you don't like it, you need to comply with US law. For example, they also have the FATCA regulations, Foreign and Tax Compliance Act. Once you go to the bank, if you need to declare with a US entity and everything, and how much money you have in your account. That's under FATCA regulations. Due to this fact that FATCA, you need to supply information to US entities or US government, US IRS, other countries also need the same informations, need to supply to them. So they approach OECD to have the GATCA, Global and Tax Compliance Act. So because of GATCA, now we have common reporting standards, as well as the automatic exchange of information, CRS and AIOS. So basically, your data has been transferred from one country to another country because of the agreement that we have agreed to, either via intergovernmental agreement or via regional agreement. So there's a lot of things happening in layer 1, basically. And those standards, international standards, under the name of compliance, are being transferred to layer 2, to the central banks. And this central bank will actually maneuver, or they actually try to tailor-made according to the nature and specifications of each jurisdiction. So the blueprint of the regulatory framework must be solid, right? First, in order to address the regulatory gap. Because when we talk about Sharia finance or Islamic finance, it's not only about Sharia products, right? You need to understand that if you want to have equity-based products, how is this exposure, risk, in terms of risk weightage asset? RWA, according to Basel III, is 200% exposure, right? The risk is high. And in terms of, transactions involving, for example, gold transactions, and you are dealing with the counterparties from America or US, they have the regulation K, which prohibits any transaction involving gold. So if you want to do Islamic placement fund, do you allow, do you need to have some sort of like alternative product towards if the jurisdiction is not actually Sharia based? We have one case previously, we have Shamil Bagzimko, that this case was decided in the England High Court. And one of the provisions in the clause mentioning that this contract is to be, Murabaha contract is to be governed under the glorious law of Sharia in UK. But this law was interpreted under the Rome Conventions because European Union at that time was under the, UK was under the EU. So the Rome Convention doesn't allow any personal law to govern a contract. And Muhammadan law is actually, or Sharia law is being treated as the personal law. So the blueprint for the regulatory framework need to be solid, that one. Another one is that we have to understand, in order to address the regulatory gap in terms of the Islamic finance, you have to identify who's who in the market. For example, like in Brunei, we have the central bank become the main regulator as regard to the financial institutions. But that is in terms of approving the products. You have the higher authority, i.e. Sharia Financial Supervisory Board, SFSB, which is regulated under SFSB Order 2006. But when you are dealing with Islamic social finance, Sadaqah, Zakat, Waqaf, Hibah, and etc., this is under the purview and regulation of Majlis Ugama Islam Brunei, which is regulated under the Qadi's Court rules and order. So, because of Islamic social finance, it's basically not regulated under the central bank, right? there are actually some limitations to do in terms of innovating the products, right? So identify who's owning the market. And then next is basically analyze the statutes, the legal provisions. You know, what are the available legal provisions domestically, locally, in your own jurisdiction, right? You might not want to harm, you do not want to harm the existing provisions, which actually consequently harming their proposed products. For example, previously in Malaysia, we invented Musyarakah Mutanagisa as one of the products in buying houses, or we even invented Buy Vitamin Agil, which actually replicates or the principles of the Buy Alina. But if this Buy Alina goes to Middle East, it will be scrapped off. You know, they will not recognize Buy Alina. But when it comes to Malaysia, we have 3 cases in 2008 decided that BBA was void. However, this case has been turned down by other cases, but still become the history, isn't it? Right? Now replaced with other products like Tawarruk. Right? So have to look into what are the repercussions or the consequences when you're dealing with the legal, domestic law. Right? I think it's very important to look into the regulatory framework as a whole, from the global perspective as well as your own local domestic law. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Prof. It's good to highlight the relationship there between academic research and how we can address regulatory gaps. We also have some regulators here in attendance, I believe, so they can appreciate some of the challenges and academic space in trying to bridge that gap. So now I'd like to go to Associate Professor Dr. Salamah Makmur. From your experience in Zakat and Wakaf research, what lessons can academics draw to ensure that their work directly benefits communities and contributes to sustainable development?
Thank you, Dr. Lufi. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi washabbihi wa baraka wasallam. First of all, I would like to thank ICIFS to invite me. Actually, I replaced Prof. Hassan that should be the one that as a panelist today. But I think this is an opportunity for us. I'm the Dean for the Islamic Business School and now in UUM. For 15 years, the Islamic Business School established, and we are focusing now on the Islamic social finance area. And based on back to the question just now, it's about research on zakat and wakaf. I would like to highlight one of the big project that have been gone through right now. Is actually on the zakat research about the Ummah Development Economic Zones. Okay, this is related or established by the Kedah Zakat Board, okay, ataupun Lembaga Zakat Negeri Kedah. They do this. They come up with this idea or model, okay, actually from the academician, late Allahyarham Professor Zakaria Abbas, one of the professor in Islamic in Zakat Research Center in UUM. She come up with this idea to develop or to have a model to make sure that our poor, fakir and miskin can get higher income and sustain. Okay, but this kind of thing is actually an innovation of the conventional style of giving money to the asnaf. Right, in zakat we have there are 8 asnaf that we have to distribute the zakat fund, right? So with that model, with that idea, And then the CEO of the Kedah Zakat Board brave to implement this idea. Okay, means that there is the CEO finding one model that can be suit or similar to his goal to ensure that the Asnaf can sustain or can transform from the Asnaf to the Muzaki. Okay, so what I want to share here is how this model, okay, how this kind of research can be translate and be implemented and then benefit to the ummah, okay, or to the Asnaf as a whole. So we have to know them better. What I mean here, if you want to do research which relate to the communities, we have to go to the we have to involve with them, okay, find them, and then what you call it? Identify them, know their background, because of different segment of poor or miskin, fakir, miskin. They have different background, different ability, different skills, okay, like what we have done in Kedah. Paddy is one of the production, or the most of the farmers in Kedah are very familiar. They have that skill to plant the paddy. Okay, so it is suitable for Kedah, but maybe this kind of project is not suitable for the other state in Malaysia. Maybe like in Indonesia, they are more on tobacco. Okay, so but the model is there, and how we can do this kind of research, we have to really understand them. Okay, that is the first thing. Okay, and then the second thing, we have to have person or the group of people that can implement, deliver this model. Okay, like what we have, Alhamdulillah, the agency, the Zakat, Kedah Zakat Board, they brave to bring this and implement this model. And Alhamdulillah, now they're starting from 2022 last time, and now we are at the fifth season already. Okay, and we have 75 participants of the farmers, Asnaf, cost of zakat is only can be received by the Asnaf only. So Alhamdulillah, 75 of Asnaf that receive this or involved with this project. Very mass project, 600 acres of the land, okay, that plant with the paddy field. Okay, so we call it as a smart paddy field in Kedah. So I think the most important thing is we have academician. You have done a lot of research. Okay, so now when you want to go to the communities, so you have to really understand them. Okay, they and be have a good intention to them. Have a positive perception to them. They really need us. Okay, they really need us, and we want to help them. But how are you going to help them? You have to know them first. We cannot just simply, okay, you do this, do that. Okay, we have to know who are they, what is their capability, what is their shortcoming. Okay, so we can help them. And then we also have to have the agencies that because we are academician, what we can do, okay, we can do the research, we can just draw the model and whatnot, but who's going to run the model, the project? Sure, there are agencies, so we need to collaborate with the agencies. Okay, but our first intention is to help the poor people, like for zakat, fakir and miskin. Okay, so we can innovate. Now, Alhamdulillah, now we a lot of research been done, so we can do innovation, okay, for the all these Islamic economic tool. We have zakat, wakaf, sadaqah, all the Islamic social finance, takaful, right? So I would like to encourage everyone who would like to do the research at the for the communities, for the benefit of for benefit of the communities, do it. And one most important thing is we have to very patient, okay? They are, it's not like our students, okay? We talk like this one day, one time, okay, one session, they can understand. But when we go to the communities, especially fakir, miskin, we have to first be good to them, okay? Be positive thinking to them, and then inshallah they will follow. They really respect us, okay? So we also have to respect them as a human. And actually, when they need us, there is a pahala, reward for us, opportunity for us to get that reward from Allah. Okay, so be patient to do this, even though maybe we don't get the ranking Q1, Q2, or whatsoever. Okay, but Allah give us that reward, inshallah, in the hereafter. So inshallah, we can do that, and let's together we do the research for the benefit for the communities.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Sulaiman Makmur. I think if I may summarize that first round very briefly, good research takes time, and it's important to be diligent in what we do, understand the context of what we are researching, whether it's at a global level or even at the local level as well. I'd like to now move on to the second part. So academics often play crucial roles as advisors and consultants to financial institutions and policymakers. So let's explore how those roles enhance research and ensure practical outcomes. So for Prof. Kabir Hassan, how have your consultancy engagements with organizations like the World Bank, the Islamic Development Bank, influenced your research focus and helped to bridge theory with practice?
If you want to do Islamic finance research, publishing in top journal, this is totally contradictory to each other. Islamic finance is a new paradigm. My first publication in one of the top journal, Islamic finance, the moment I started with this paradigm, what I wanted to show, by the time it was accepted, totally different story. Because you have to conform to the reviewers who are not really knowledgeable of Islamic finance, and you try to tweak their way of thinking. But we want to create a separate paradigm. So you have to take this risk, and I do urge the universities and the top administrators, they must understand the limitation. The Islamic finance is a new field, new paradigm. And you're trying to challenge the existing paradigm, they're not going to buy it. You know, having a lot of publication myself, still I'm a pariah in the mainstream finance. They think that this guy is the Wacko thing. On the other hand, because I live in the United States, I have to wear two hats, and these Islamic scholars think that I'm not good and Islamic enough. Okay? Because so you're torn between two parts. So the first thing I said, if you want to do Islamic finance research, you have to do it for the sake of doing the research and propagating a lot of this example that has been given by Yaqub and Mahmoud. And these are the real thing, practical research, case-based research for those who do not have enough journals in the West that will take it. But fortunately, I see the Islamic countries, every university in Indonesia are coming up with their own journal, and the university and the Ministry of Education must recognize those articles as student contributions, so that will be used for promotion and so on. So please take it from me, because I will lead in between two words. Coming back to consultancy, like in the United States, you know what is how many papers you have to publish? In every 5-year cycle, you have to publish 2 papers in A-level journal. Every 5 years. But here, Professor Monso was telling me every year you have yearly KPI, and it really makes your sleep go away. So This is the wrong approach really. You have to get out of this thing, get away from this Elsevier, you know, all this top publisher. They try to come and sell this idea to the top people. You have to have your own, you know, way of your journals, you know, categorizing this. Your people decide, okay, which journal is what level. You don't have to. ABDC, the Australian scholars do that. ABS, these British scholars do that. Why can't you do this? Why do we have to work and depend on this colonial mentality? You know, now they are really still, you know, they're controlling this. Get away from there, okay? Coming back to your consultancy, that's another misnomer. It's this part of the world, you have to do consulting. And it's probably one of the KPI too. In ICIFS, that's what I was told, you know, industry engagement to bring money in. We don't have to bring money in the social science. It's not a norm in the United States. Social science, business school, the professors do a lot of consultancy to make their own pocket, you know, heavy. It doesn't go to the university, because if you go through the university take 50% of your money, so it's better do consultancy on your own. And same thing is my experience, you know, when I have been invited by, you know, World Bank to do a project, it's not really Islamic finance to do, it is something for their own consumption. So I had to sign many cases, non-disclosure agreements, so I cannot really publish anything out of it. Recently, in a private sector, $2 billion bank based in New Orleans, I was invited to their risk management policy to write something that has to conform the regulatory requirement. How do you? So I was working with a guy who was a PhD from Columbia, and the another guy is a normal MBA. And now not only that, like the point that Professor Mansour was mentioning, the communication. I was spending half of my time, you know, communicating, you know, trying to make a bridge between two guys, because the Columbia guy thinks the other guy doesn't know, within the same organization. And the guy, his practical approach, you know, this MBA, he knows that what really works. So anything that you do, and this is also wrong, I would say this part of the work, you have to have a publication. If you get a research grant, for example, you have to have a Q1, Q2 publication, otherwise you don't get another grant. It should not be like this. You should really put a, you know, emphasis or your focus on the input that goes into this thing. Output may not end up in a publication. It may end up with a good, you know, report, and that report can be used by everyone. But having said this, you have to find a balance, because you have a tendency, you get the research grant and you spend it and you do not do anything. So that in between point you have to bring here. In the United States, we do not have, you know, except STEM. I'm talking about the science and technology, because these are mostly driven by NIH and so on. But again, this guy who is going to be new, you know, the secretary, health secretary, he's going to put all the money, stop. So that's going to have an impact on their research as well. Our research industry does not really come to us. They have their enough talent pool, okay? They can do their research in-house. So we really do not get this chance either. So whatever we do, for our own benefit. But in this part of the world, I know you have to have KPI, this thing, but you really do not push to get it published. So when you do this, from my practical experience, being currently editor-in-chief of 4 journals, this, you know, I get all these, you know, requests, you know, brother, because my Muslim name, if I don't get it published, I don't get the second one. You know, sometimes my heart aches, I try to help, but this is not the way it should be. Why should you come to me to get your paper published so that you can get the next round of research? So this type of thought process really must be stopped, reworked, rethought within the context that you live in. You cannot really live in the expectation what the West wants you to do. You know, that is a very wrong idea. Now, Professor Mansour was mentioning Milton Friedman, you know, the banking model he was referring to. We want bank to do everything. BBI, ICIFS was involved. BBI, bank cannot do more than what Morabaha banking, okay, period. The way they structure that you have taken. Now we want to do bank everything for you. We are not really emphasizing or putting money into the non-banking financial mode. Another point I want to see, you know, zakat. I do some work in zakat. You know, one of the biggest problem, the difference between the extremely poor and poor. The poor really have their self-dignity. They really don't want to come forward and tell that I really need the zakat money. So you need to develop a delivery mechanism. This digitalization of zakat can really help you so that they do not feel, bad that they're coming forward, I'm begging for money, because this is their right actually. And they cannot even access the right because of their self-pride. So you really need to develop those techniques. And alhamdulillah, the Indonesia, Malaysia is showing us the rest of the world the way, and it will go that way. So don't focus or try to tie your research, because in industry or World Bank, IMF always ask me to do something for their own consumption, not to publish it. Even I had to write it down, but so do not try to equate these two, that industry research will come to an academic publication. Academic publication has a lot of metrics that you have to follow. It does not really go hand in hand. So I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Prof. Kabir Hassan, for that. Very important to highlight, I think. I'd now like to turn to Prof. Mansur Ibrahim, more specifically on ICIFS. So how does ICIFS action-based learning program, which was introduced, help to integrate real-world projects into research, and what lessons can other universities learn from this model to better engage with industry?
Okay, this is more specifics to what we have done at ICIFS. With respect to our master programs, we have 4 different master programs. The relevant for what has been asked, action-based learning, is for what we term as conventional face-to-face programs. We have MSc, Islamic Finance, we have Master Islamic Finance Practices, and we have MBA, the Sustainable Business. And we have a requirement for all students have to go through the coursework, where the name of that course is Actions-Based Learning. I think I have Prof. Zul here, who are in charge of the ABL. So the details with him, but I can explain a little bit on the idea of ABL, how it's coming up, and why we have that course in our master program. If we look at, I think I would like to echo what has been mentioned by Dr. Salama on the fact that industry need us, basically need the academic to go in, because they also have their own problems, and especially the small and medium enterprises. They have problems, but they also do not have financial resources in order to engage, for example, consultant to come and resolve their problems. And we also have problems in terms of bridging our students to the industry so that they can understand industries, not just understand the textbooks. So basically by linking through ABL, we have a win-win situation. So we can solve the industry problem on certain aspects, but then we can bring the classroom to the industry, right? Because what we have looked so far, especially in undergraduate program, I'm not sure here, but in Malaysian context, for example, in business administrations, they have internship, for example, bringing students out, but internship doesn't really work in terms of making students learn about the industry. Because at the end, we send our students to internships, but their job just to be someone who bring documents to copy, make coffee and so on, not knowing exactly what are the industry is all about. So it doesn't really work in most of the time when it comes to internships. So we create these ABLs. How it works for ABLs, we engage small and medium enterprises and sometimes big banks, for example, like QSR in Malaysia that owns KFC, or bankings, but mostly we deal with the small, medium enterprises. We go to them and invite them to become our partner in teaching future generations. So the way we communicate with them, we want them to be proud of playing the role in educating future generations. They play a role for the future of the nations, coming and help us. But also a win-win situation. We tell them that we are going to send a group of students to you. if you have any problem that you would like to know to resolve in your organizations, our students will do the work. But it must be research-based. So we have a lot of partners, I think so far more than 40, our partner institutions. And Pusat Zakat is one of them. I think Pusat Zakat Kedah, I would say, the best Zakat board in Malaysia. You can learn from them, although they are very dynamics. I think the leader there, I know Sheikh Zakaria and Dr. Faisal, they are really dynamic people. They come up with all type of programs. So we work with them also, but they need certain help because they would like to know, at least, for example, these social institutions, small, medium enterprise, they would like to know small things. For example, Zakat Kedah, they would like to know whether the initiative that they have done for the past many years, what are the impacts? They don't have time to go and try to evaluate the impact because there are a lot of things to do. So they just want to evaluate the impact of their, let's say, food programs. Right? Because they distribute food through the mosque. Right? And for every mosque they have, I think, I'm not mistaken, 20 asnaf they distribute, and there are more than 100 mosques. So every year they spend hundreds of thousands just to distribute the food. But they would like to know what really the impact their program have on society. And there are many other programs, Project Hassan's on paddy farming, where they try to create the whole supply chains of rice productions. Even they train people to drive drones for fertilizing the paddy farms. So very dynamic into that context. So we have all partners, social institutions, small, medium enterprises. They give the problem to us, right? And every year, every semester, we have 6 to 10 problems, research problems coming from industries. And then we screen them. And our committee that screen them, of course, Prof. Zul in the committee, myself as the chair, but we also have people from industries. So we have very close linkages with industry. And if I tell you, the one that in our committee member from industry is the chairman of Bursa Malaysia Stock Exchange, and the chairman of CMB groups, the bank. Right? So we have big people from industry coming and helping us. Why they do that? Because they see that they play a role. So you have to emphasize that these are some positive thing that they have done to the market, and they love to do it. In fact, they are ready to contribute. And we screen the projects, and then we select the projects, and we send students out throughout the 14 weeks to work, not to be attached with industry, but to go and do research on this project that they have done. We have done, for example, project on affordable housing in Indonesia. And we have done the project for urban farming. We have done the project for feasibility study for the port in Langkawi. We have done the project for a human capital need for Islamic finance in Mindanao. We have our students doing that, of course, by mentor. So the benefit for our students, they know exactly the first hand, the small problem that industry have. And our ABL is quite a kind of our capstones and really rigor in contact of training students, because before we send the student out, we prepare them, because we do not want them to go out and look bad to the industry. We want to impress, right? So we prepare them very well through various type of program. They have to go through strategic management course as a prerequisite for them to go for ABLs. We have a lot of extra workshop for them, pitching workshops, presentation workshops, project management workshop, design thinking workshop throughout the semesters, right? And we have to do those, and we allocate quite a good budget for that to bridge our students with the industry. So those are type of things that is considered as a unique value proposition coming from the master program from ICIFS. And of course, action-based learning, we cannot claim that's new because we also learn from the United States, especially from MIT. We got people from MIT to come in and brief us on how they conduct action-based learning. But MIT focus, not MIT, ASB, which is collaboration with MIT, they focus more on big corporations like Asia and so on, but we try to focus more on the small, medium enterprises, because for us to build future leadership in Islamic finance, they need to know what is on the ground, right? Especially small, medium enterprises. So that's what we have for action-based learning. It's part of the program. I think now it's worked very well, very extensive, intensive for the students. They complain a lot during the course of the program, but at the end, these are the programs that they learn a lot. We receive a good feedback, and some of the report that they have done that becomes basically adopted by the industry and then published in terms of in professional magazines, in basically kind of policy report, as what Prof. Kabir emphasized, where the research need not be translated into Q1, Q2, but into policy, into white paper, and so on. Okay? So those are very important part that we have done to train our students. Right? And as I said, I think the benefit of being at ICIFS, unlike previous institutions that I were in before, because ICIFS is under central bank, so it's easy to get industry linkages, right? Especially banks. Because when central bank says something, bank, please come and help ICIFS, all will come in. So it's quite easy for us, right? Takafuls, zakat institution, we can go out. So we leverage on our linkage with Bank Negara to link with industries. So that's a good part. And through Pusat Zakat Kedah, indirectly we also link with UUM because we help in terms of zakat project and so on. So those are the part of things that maybe can be considered here, especially in the master program, because at the end, I would say that understanding the industry need is very important criteria for us to link our educations to the industry. And one more important thing, afraid that we may not have the third round because of the time constraints. When we go out from the industry, don't just go out and ask, because in the past, the way that we do things in Malaysian institutions, for example, we just go out and ask for sponsorships. Every time we have program, we go to industry, can you sponsor, can you sponsor? Now, you have to go out and provide a value proposition for them, not just asking for money, but what you can give to them. So that one really important part. So most of the time when we go and meet industry, for example, we meet Itika, Takaful, we meet with FWD, also insurance firms. We will tell them, we need this from you, but we can give this to you. In term, mostly because we are from educations, we can train your staff, for example, on the basis of what you contribute to us. So we have to give value to industry. In that way, this industry will be forthcoming to us. So that one really important. So thank you.
Very much, Prof. Mansoor. Definitely, that's something that we seek to incorporate as well, link from ICIFS and other institutions into our new MSc program, inshallah. So there's a lot of, there's a couple of regulators, industry representatives from in among the audience. So please come to us with your problems. Inshallah, we will try to help solve the problems together. And we hope to have those valuable conversations over the next couple of weeks and into the future, inshallah. So now, question for Dr. Hakimah. As an academic and Sharia board member, how can academics guide Islamic financial institutions beyond mere compliance towards achieving broader maqasid of Sharia goals such as social justice and sustainability?
Bismillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Talking about social justice as well as the sustainable products, and we even have the Maqasid Sharia. Maqasid Sharia, or the objective of Sharia, is basically to protect the five: life, nasab, intellect, property, and religion. So when we actually, as a Sharia board members, or even as an academicians, even as Sharia officers in the bank, we owe our liabilities and duties towards Allah first. So we need to make sure that we are truthful to your Creator, God. The thing is, when it comes to the innovating financial products, or even creating financial products, the main thing that you have to look into beyond compliance is basically what is your, apart from obligations towards Allah Ta'ala, right? And the maslahah, the public interest, right? I think even though some criticism saying that Islamic finance today is actually full of maslahah, but we still have our legal footing, reasoning on that basis. Why? Because in order to compete, or in order to have, because Islamic finance is actually an alternative to the conventional, right? So our role is basically to make sure that the best actually suit the Sharia principles. But to give you some, examples, we do have occasions where there are contradictions between the Sharia principles as well as the environment as well, or the legal problems, right? Arising out of introducing a product because of the impediments in terms of framework. When we actually have to choose between the two, you actually have to understand that the concept of Islamic finance, they are breathing within the, as I mentioned earlier, the structure or the systems actually built up based on the paramedical approach. So if you want to have like IOFI standards to be part, of your policy focus or policy, then you must understand, are you going to put extra burden on the financial institutions? Why am I saying this? Because if we look into the compliance regime, IOFI or even Islamic Financial Services Board, IFSB standards and guidelines are not within the paramedical approach or compliance requirement. So if you actually impose the banks to have compliance, apart from reporting, for example, financial reporting via International Accounting Standards or IFRS, then you also impose them to do compliance through IOFI standards, through accounting of IOFI standards. So you are asking them to do dual reporting, right? So when it comes to the this kind of practices, we can see that the approach is that you are imposing extra works on the financial institutions, because the requirements, regulatory requirements, as well as the compliance actually imposing on the minimum requirement is on the IFRS, right, and not on the IOFI standards. But if the regulators choose to have those kind of requirements to be imposed on the markets, financial institutions, then it becomes compulsory for the banks or the financial institutions to comply with. Yeah, I give examples like in the security market order in Brunei Darussalam, we actually have dual reporting standards, dual reporting applications. One is actually to comply with IFRS, another one is to comply with the IOFI accounting standards. All right. So these actually become like if it is become a mandatory, if it is being imposed by the regulators. So back to the protections of the maqasid sharia, the one that we actually believe whenever we do invent products, we take into considerations those, we factored in those factors, those life, to protect their life, nasab, intellect, property, religions, But when it comes to the practice, right, for example, the debtor could not afford to pay the mortgage or the monthly installment. The consequences will be these people will be parked under this bankruptcy or even blacklisted, right? So in practice and realities as well as theories, theories as very good as it sounds, but it's easy to say it than done, right? But we still have the procedures and processes. So as much as possible, right, goes to the same line as the sustainability or to protect, to make sure that all the products are in line or at least fulfilling the criteria of ESG, economic, environmental, social, as well as the governance. So we have to make sure that this particularly, right, benefiting their customers, not only consumers, but also they call it public at large and the financial institutions also, right? So I think that's my answer.
Dr. Hakima, so we've just had approval from the Secretariat to extend the time to 10:30, which allows us one more question for our panelists, and then we'll go to the Q&A. Do interact with the Q&A, which questions you'd like to see being asked. There's about 7 or so questions. Now I'll turn to Dr. Sulaiman Makmur. How can academics leverage, again, consultancy work to ensure that their research findings lead to operational improvements, particularly in Islamic microfinance and zakat management?
Alhamdulillah. Thank you for the question. What is the difference between research work and the consultation work, consultancy? Research normally we did with the research grant with the fund, okay, and then it will be end with the publication Q1, Q2 and whatnot, right? Different than the consultation project, where actually it is demand. There is a demand, like what Prof. Mansoor mentioned just now. The industry need our expertise to help them to solve the problem and whatnot. Okay, so I will share one of the project that we received from FWD Takaful. They asked us to develop one Takaful product for again B40. Okay, so we have done that project and we deliver. And this kind, how FWD Takaful can find us to do this research. The first one, we have experience. Okay, so research is good where you can have experience doing research. Okay, then from that experience, people trust you, means that you are expert in this area and whatnot. So the industry will come and find you and ask your assistant, or you are the expert for them. Okay, so research is very important in the beginning of your career, okay, as an academician. Then with once they trust you, okay, or they call you as an expert in that area, so they give you, or they will ask you to do a consultation work. You have to deliver. That is the second stage. Okay, so once you deliver, okay, because of this project is for communities, we cannot stop there. So that is the difference between the research and the consultation project, especially for the communities. Okay, the next part is to deliver that Takaful product for the B40. So what we did is we help them again to deliver as much as we can for the Takaful product, as minimum RM1.90 per month. Okay, so Alhamdulillah, again we gain the trust from the FWD Takaful. They can see that we can deliver that project. Okay, so that is another consultation project. And After that, they give us endowment for 15 million ringgit Malaysia. Okay, for IBS to come up with to create another one social takaful social STF social takaful fund unit. Okay, that is another center of excellence. Why they want to give that endowment to us, Islamic Business School UUM, because of they trust us, because when they ask us to do the consultation project, we try as much as possible to deliver on time. Okay, industry is very concerned about the time frame and whatnot. Maybe different than Bank Negara Malaysia. Okay, cause of this is the situation or the experience that we have. Okay, so until now we still can deliver continue with the project. And another thing is industry also are now want to do their CSR work, okay, but they cannot directly reach to the communities. So they need us, okay, as an academician, researchers here, they need us to help them to link them to the communities. So this is our chances, okay, to do the consultation work. Okay, so Alhamdulillah, that is one of the consultation project that I can share with everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Slama. I think Prof. Kabir, did you?
Yeah, actually, you know, you are living in the area of the world where the Islamic finance has taken a very deep root. So I just want to share something. It is not always easy to research. I was in Pakistan. You know, Pakistan has recently a constitutional amendment. They must change their entire financial system to Islamic from January 1st, 2028. Right now, Pakistan has a huge amount, about $250 billion of national sovereign debt. And you have to convert those debt into Islamic sukuk. Now, in order to do this, another statistics I must tell you, probably Pakistan has the largest number of Sharia scholar combined pool in the world, even more than Malaysia. Even with this skill set, they are having problem because they have to operate within a colonial British inherited legal system. And that legal system does not allow them to do certain things, new product development and so on. Having said this, you know, one question that he has for me, the interdisciplinary approach of research. First point that I want to convey, do not try to tie the Islamic finance research, whether it's action-based, whether academic, to Q1, Q2 publication. That is the wrong way of doing Islamic finance research because this field is new. Second point, communication is important. When I say communication, is a written communication as well as verbal communication. Whether do industry research or consultancy, you have to speak the language of the people that you're talking to. When you write for a journal, you need to know the language of the journal. So you have to be very good in written English and also spoken. Now, sustainability research within interdisciplinary framework, we have actually 7 myths. I want to go very quickly for your benefit. Now, myth number 1, we agree on the purpose of ESG. There is no consensus what ESG, what is sustainability means. There are 3 points of view. ESG could be a long term. Now, if you are in capitalist system, free market economy in the United States, right now Donald Trump has been dismantling all programs called DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that is one of the point of ESG, the S point that Professor Mansoor and I have been emphasizing. We are not really looking at these things, and 57 wise and Muslim countries, that is very important. Now, there is another group said that ESG means corporate social responsibility. Quickly, the ESG is value increasing.
That's not true. Yesterday I told you it could be value decreasing, it could be value increasing depending on an academic research tells you the both sides of the story. Number 3, we can tell whether claim ESG activity is actually ESG. Not really. The greenwashing, there's difficulty to tell if an initiative is truly ESG. I can give you an example. Coca-Cola in the United States, I'm sure you drink. In 2021, Coke announced the production of plastic bottles made from 100% recycled materials right after Coke was named the world's largest plastic polluter. So we do all this face-saving kind of thing, not really value increasing. Now a company's sustainability agenda is well-defined and broad-driven. That's not true. In theory, a company's ESG agenda is identified after evaluating the company's business activities and its interests, but in practice it is not the case. There was a study done by 2021 Pricewaterhouse. 64% say the ESG linked to their corporate strategy, but only 25% of the board understands the ESG, what sustainability means. So this item means many things to many people. We do not have a clear-cut definition of this. Number 5, when you say ESG, as I said, S has been neglected. G does not really belong to this ESG agenda because it's a governance means many things. You know, it's whether the corporation is run properly, if it's an Islamic, whether their Sharia board is doing their job, and so on. So, number 6, that ESG ratings accurately measure ESG quality. Yesterday I told you that, you know, the credit rating, the S&P and Fitch, they have 99% correlation, but there are 6 ESG provider, only 30% correlation. So if a company A tells you that is your ESG company, the other company will not tell you. So there is a different, the way it is measured, that's become a growth industry. You know, this, if you want to do, I had some hit, fortunately, but I had to pay a lot of money to buy this data. And finally, the mandatory disclosure not always will solve the problem. You have to have a long-term value addition. Maqasid al-Sharia, the 5 things in Ghazali framework. If you follow this, you do these things right, that adds value to the society, that solves problem, real problem in the society. So interdisciplinary, this one of my question was there, you have to keep this in mind. You don't just simply hardcore finance, you mix with economics, mix with sociology, mix with action research, case studies, and that's the way you produce research, not necessarily always target to Q1 journal, okay? Keep this in mind, then we'll go in the right way, we'll publish as well as benefit the society. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor, for your insight. And I think that actually answers the question that I'd like to ask from Slido. So perhaps we can skip your part there. The question from Slido is that what advice can you give to young researchers as a starting point to develop themselves with regards to Islamic finance? So if it's okay, we'll skip your part and then go to Prof. Mansoor. Yeah.
Let me answer this question. You know, you have to be 3 in 1. If you really want to be a true Islamic finance scholar, you need to know Sharia. And I would advise that you have a working knowledge of Arabic language. For me, it's always a pain for me. I cannot read, understand Arabic. You need to really go to the source. Second, you need to understand economics, the modus operandi, how things are run. Third, you need to be very good at data analytics. If you can combine these 3, and with AI revolution that happened 2022, in order to move ahead, you really in your curriculum, in your skill set, you develop this so that you can publish, you can speak, you can contribute to the society. That's very important.
Okay, for the young researcher, how to develop themselves, kind of bring me back to the past, I think 29 years of being involved in the academia and starting myself at that time as someone new in research. And I think after 29 years looking back, there are certain things that I regret I did when it comes to research, and something that I said to myself is the right thing to do. And basically, you have to set up your objective first. You have to understand exactly what is the main purpose of research. I think we have emphasized enough. I think Prof. Kabir has been very insistent in the fact that research is not about Q1, Q2, right? So you have to understand exactly when you do research, what is the purpose, right? Because normally the young researcher, you are still doing your PhD, or you're just coming out from PhD, for examples. And for those who are coming out from PhD, for examples, learning is lifelong, basically learning lifelong. And after we have our PhD, rarely we are going back to the classroom and try to learn. So we may go back once in a while to learn. So one way of learning that we have is basically to be part of the global discourse through publications. So our publication is just reflecting our participations in giving our view on certain aspect where you have so many people globally and looking at that aspects, and you try to communicate with them through publication, and through those process you learn something. So research is basically a basic for learning and continue to learn. So you have to know that aspect in develop yourself, right? Because there are a lot of things even after PhD we do not know, and we have to learn. And we have the learning from someone who read our articles and provide feedbacks, right? Don't feel bad of rejections, because as long as you get feedback, that's good enough, because you can learn from that rejections and so on, and you keep on learning. So that really important parts in terms of developing yourself. And do not focus on quantity. Be patient, in fact, to develop yourself. And we have been spoiled by the KPI. We have mentioned a lot regarding KPI. We have been spoiled where our learning is not deep enough. We just rush for publications, but then do not rush for quantity. Right? Just do work, because at the end, 10 years back, 5 years into the future, 15 years into the future, people are not looking at how many you publish, right? People look at how good your publications. People doesn't care you have 100, 200s, but people look at the quality of your work. And of course, quality have some correlation with in which journal you are in and so on, and the impact of your publication in terms of policy, when you come up with policy papers and so on. So do not focus so much on quantity, but focus on you want to learn, and focus on quality that you have done. So those are type of things that I would like to advise, because my mistake because of KPI that I have done before, we rush for quantity, but I never published 20 per year. I cannot imagine. I asked my friends, someone published 20 per year or 40 per year, you mentioned, that bad signal to the academic. It's not a good signal. It doesn't mean higher publication number is a good signal. No, it's not a good signal. And highly reputable researchers look at 40 publications per year. It doesn't indicate a good things. So if you have 1 or 2, it's a good thing, because they know that you spend more time deep enough to learn. So those are very important part.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Dr. Hakima? Same question.
Okay, if I may add, some of the research that I have been actually conducted involve the interdisciplines, legal, Sharia, as well as economy, legal, Sharia, and the fintech, right? So we actually need to learn new things. Don't be complacent on what you are, you have at the moment. you need to upgrade yourself. Even myself, I'm doing, learning a lot on the cyber terrorism, you know. That's my passion as well. So I take certifications in order to learn new things. And we learn from others as well, even our juniors, you know. I have the privilege to learn from Dr. Suryana, even though she's junior, but, you know, her methodology is, you know, for me it's perfect. So I learn a lot from my seniors as well, from Professor Nihal, as well as my previous professors. So be humble and try to learn more, you know, because once you learn more, you will know that you have a lot more to learn and you are lacking in terms of a lot more. Okay, that's my advice. Don't afraid to try new things and to learn new things as well as continue to learn, right? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Hakimah. Wise words. I'm sorry to rush you, Dr. Salama, but if you can keep it very short, we have to go to the break where you can ask further questions, engage with our panelists. But after that, our parallel speakers, some of them are waiting as well online. So if you could keep it short, Dr. Salama.
Same question.
Same question on advice to young researchers.
Back to our niat, okay? In nama alumni niat. Okay, so if it's okay to have that KPI or whatsoever, and we want to achieve the KPI. Why we want to achieve the KPI, the goals or the objective that been outlined by our university, because of we want to fulfill, because that is our responsibility. Why we are hired? We are hired to help the university to do this and this. Okay, so that KPI is actually outlined by our university. They want us to achieve our university to go to for the higher ranking or whatsoever. Okay, so as long as it is follow Sharia, okay, they didn't ask you to do other than the bad things or whatsoever. So we still can use that KPI as our ways to and we still can fulfill, and that we keep it as our responsibility. This is amanah. Okay, this is amanah. And as a Muslim, when we are doing research in Islamic finance, Islamic-based program, we have that knowledge amanah. Okay, amanah ilmu. Okay, so we need to do maybe more than KPI. It's more beyond than KPI. So I think that's all my suggestion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Salama, and thank you very much to our esteemed panelists this morning. I think we could go on for much longer. There's a lot of things that we could share, but please do take it offline, engage with our panelists. They're more than happy to share, inshallah. So with that, thank you very much, and I'll pass it now back to the MC.
We have now come to the end of our panel discussion. We extend our sincere appreciation to our esteemed speakers for sharing their valuable insights and perspectives. As a token of our gratitude, we would now like to invite Dr. Ahmad Lutfi Abdul Razak to present the token of appreciation to our distinguished speakers, followed by a photo session. May we first invite Professor Dr. Muhammad Kabir Hassan. Professor Dr. Mansur Ibrahim. Professor Dr. Salamah Mamur. Associate Professor Dr. Hakimah Yaqub. Ladies and gentlemen, a gentle reminder to all participants and speakers who have not yet RSVP'd for tonight's conference dinner. Please proceed to the registration table at your earliest convenience. On behalf of the organizing committee, we kindly seek your cooperation in scanning the feedback QR code located at the back of your lanyard to provide your valuable feedback. Your input is essential in helping us improve future events. We will now take a short break and resume with our parallel sessions at 10:50 a.m. The parallel sessions will take place at the following venues: Session 3A, Meeting Room, Floor 1. Session 3B, Classroom, Floor 1. Session 3C, Meeting Room, Floor 3. Session 3D, Auditorium. Thank you for your kind attention, and we look forward to seeing you back for the sessions.
-2.5 to -2.5, but most of the countries are staying below 0, but because though they are increasing, but that is also below 0. So their governance factors have been reflected in this graph that is declining. Therefore, there is a number of studies from developing countries, developed countries, and